Hello and welcome, yes, to this final session of what has been a spectacular morning of discussion and debate all around business and events post-pandemic. They say they leave the best till last. I'll leave you, the audience, to decide that. But I'd like to welcome our two guests to our session today, which is around long-term effects on business and events travel. So welcome to Stephen and to Aurélie. Now, don't panic. You can't see Aurélie at the moment. She's in the middle of the French countryside. We've got a little problem with her video connection, but she is absolutely there, wired for sound. So she'll be joining us from there. Let's start here with no crystal balls I'm seeing in Stephen's office. And Aurélie, I checked with you, you didn't have a crystal ball, but Stephen, you work with wealth management clients, you work with private banking. So these people are around the world. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you speaking to these clients about business and travel post-pandemic?
Well, we're very lucky to have a global business and a global view of what's going on. I was lucky enough to be in New York at the beginning of March, actually, before this really all kicked off big time, and before I think even any deaths had been announced. And even then, we were organising two large events for the middle of the month. We were hearing companies not wanting to engage, having company-wide travel bans, and were really actually very, very scared about things. And they were pulling out of the events every hour of every day that we were there. Now that seems to have carried on. I think the Americans are particularly scared and particularly worried about things like air in the aircraft. How much does the virus itself travel around in the ventilation systems of aircraft? I think going forward, they're not going to be willing to travel very much. And I think what we're planning is, if we're going to be doing an event in New York, it's going to be New York people who are going to be attending. And I would have thought in North America, you know, the very large summits, the very large conferences that you might get in, I don't know, Las Vegas, say, might not be so prevalent. People don't want to get on those planes, don't want to travel to those conferences. Europe, slightly different matter. We've got some events coming up in October. And people in continental Europe aren't particularly engaged in coming to those events, even though they're engaged in us with those events. They don't want to physically turn up. So that is an issue. Asia, funnily enough, events in the last quarter are doing very well. There's no pushback from attendees to those events. However, we're looking at those events in two ways. There's a physical event, and there's a lot of material around those events that we're selling to our clients. So they're willing to come and say, yes, we will come to those events, but if you don't hold them, of course, you're not going to bill us for them, are you? No is the answer. But we've got a business model that has a significant amount of revenue that's built around that event or those events. So in terms of business travel more generally, I would think that business class travel is going to do just fine. And I think lots of business travel happens in economy class, of course. And I think that's going to be the area that's going to be cut back. I think people who are doing this business travel may not want to do the business travel in economy. It's just too cramped. It's just too dangerous. So I think that travel will only be very, very specifically done. I don't think actually it's going to be built around leisure. I think people are going to be very careful about leisure. So an event that has a lot of social activity around it may not be the type of event that does well. I think something that is absolutely specific, absolutely business oriented, that has a specific outcome might do might do actually very well.
There is something that is stirring around leisure and business, so that's great. It's really, really wonderful to get a global perspective, and it's also a trend that you're pulling out, is that where the countries or the continents that have seen the virus come through, it seems that there's more confidence there. Aurélie, I'd like to come over to you and say welcome. I know you've been listening away, even though we can't see you. One of your specialities, one of your expertise is next gen travel. Do you sort of agree with what Stephen's saying? Obviously, we've all read the Times Rich list. There aren't too many next gen. There are not too many millennials on it this year. But is that something that you're seeing as a trend with your clients?
So there are actually several components to that, to complement what Stephen just developed. In our company at Festive Road, we are a bit more focused on right now on helping our clients in business travel. So it's more going to be individual travelers or travelers that used to indeed travel for meetings or conferences. We have spoken a lot, with engaged a lot with a community of travel managers and buyers in sectors such as pharma, technology, legal, consumer goods. And I would say, no matter what generation, right now it's really around duty of care and safety first. So I would say all companies are now past the crisis management phase. And we have hit that pause moment where everybody's kind of trying to figure out what to do and how to do. So we actually figured out, and I have some slides. I've just prepared some slides for you, so it helps, the audience as well understand a little bit the structure that we put behind our thinking. So a policy in place, the right distribution and service platform, an agency or a travel agency that would help you, a meetings agency. And then you have the sourcing and the service enablers. So this is what Stephen touched when he mentioned, flying business class, for example. There's a lot of discussion going right now with cleanliness protocols with hotels and accommodations at large. So we thought, how can we prepare for a COVID era? And this is the next slide. For our clients, we developed what we call the permissible travel framework, because we believe that beyond, only the traveler, or no matter what generation you belong to and the confidence, there is a bigger picture to that. And it's this equation of the company confidence. How does an organization feel sending away their people for meetings or to attend, some events? There's the traveler confidence. What is employee agreeable? Is the employee willing to travel? Do they have some concerns? What type of support is required? And to your point on generation, I spoke to a lot of next gens, and it's true that there seems to be a trend where the younger generations are a bit more inclined to go back on the road to travel. However, there is that component of, do you have somebody at home who might be at risk, and are you ready to take that risk to actually expose them? And the third component, I think, that is super important in that equation is the government permission. Are the borders actually open? Is travel permitted? Is there going to be like a self-quarantine that is going to be imposed to me? So this is pretty much where we're at when we advise travel managers or meetings managers, when we help them to come up with a plan.
Absolutely great. And for anybody who is really interested in downloading these slides, we'll make sure that they are available for you. I want to go straight over to our questions and our polls, because fascinating stuff. If you haven't answered the poll, please do so now. Stephen, I know that you mentioned that you've got events, and we'll call them on-site events, planned from October. 58% of our audience, 58% of our audience have said they are not going to feel comfortable traveling until 2021. What checks and balances are your company putting in place to ensure that your participants, your attendees feel comfortable and obviously pay for these tickets because you need to be running a revenue generating business?
Well, we're moving over to a system whereby we have far fewer people attend events. We're placing them as being more of a premium event rather than a mass event. So consequently, fewer people will be there. So that's one thing. We're working very closely with the event providers to make sure that they follow correct standards and that they have the higher standards of cleanliness, but also all the protocols in place to make sure that the event runs smoothly and safely. And thirdly, I guess we're thinking about insurance and liability. Where does the liability sit in terms of problems coming out of events? And that's a part of the puzzle that we haven't really got to grips with yet, but we need to, because it's incredibly important to the sustainability of any business.
Thank you. A question that's come through, and I think if I can ask you both to answer this one from your client perspective. I know, Aurélie, you're working in the business travel sector, which includes meetings as well. One of our attendees, one of our participants has asked, do you think traveling to international events could be replaced with split location events? I would call that multi-hub events, hiring venues in different locations and using hybrid solutions to connect them. Aurélie.
Yes, so actually, absolutely. I think this is a good alternative. So as part of that permissible travel framework that we have built, see that as a guide with different components and questions to ask and areas to look at. So if you think about the phase one return, and if you want to plan those multi-hubs events, you can look at geography. Looking at the markets, there are some travel bubbles that are starting to open. There is, for example, Australia, New Zealand, it's starting to open up. Domestic US, we can see some rise. We have some, data on international flights. For example, New York JFK, for example, that is starting to become a little bit popular. Helsinki is thinking about opening up as well. So my first advice would be to look at those travel bubbles and the geography, what is actually possible and where could you possibly gather your people locally and then come up with a multi-hub event.
Very good idea. I hadn't thought of that particularly, but wouldn't we think that if you have more venue space, costs will go up, and the business model needs to be adjusted. Whether you charge people more for that, perhaps you do, but will people be willing to pay more to be subjected to more social interaction?
I think I would tackle a little bit your vision on traveling purely for business or just stick to your purpose. There might be here some opportunity to actually combine leisure with business travel, make the most out of a trip because you're going out on the road anyway. So maybe it's the right opportunity to combine both. I've actually read, so it's a very interesting piece of research from a university in Tel Aviv. They according to their research, they thought that it might be interesting to try a 4/10 day exposure period. So meaning you're out for 4 days and then you self-quarantine for 10 days. Because apparently what they found out is that you become contagious 3 days after a potential exposure. So I guess as we find out a little bit more about that, it might be the right opportunity to start maybe opening up things and get travelers to have an experience.
The word is pleasure, as I understand. From sort of a ClearView point of view with your clients, what are you hearing in terms of that as a potential trend?
I think that people have been doing that all the time anyway. That's always been part of it. And I would think that it may happen less now. I think people will want to be very specific. What am I trying to achieve? How can I achieve it in the quickest, best way? I'm going in, I'm going out, and I'm minimising my risk. And any talk of if you catch it here, you have to quarantine there. Yeah. People just don't want to hear that. They just want to have the minimum risk. And their corporations, their companies, banks, whatever, have spent a lot of money recruiting them, training them. They bring in a lot of the revenue of the organization. And if they're out of action or very sadly die, that's going to be a huge cost to the operation, and people aren't going to want to risk it.
I think I'd like to bring in my next gen hat here. I mean, you all read the news. Twitter was the first one to announce that they will leave the choice to their employees to work at home permanently or go to the office. Google has done the same. Facebook is considering it. So we all, every day we hear more. So maybe as well, we'll get to a more location independent workplace where people might be able to work from anywhere. Which might actually open some new doors as well when it comes to, organizing events or business trips.
Aurélie, thank you, Stephen. We've got time for one more question before I ask you actually to get your crystal balls ready and glowing and shiny. One of our attendees is saying our delegates travel to the UK to attend events. The issue we have is a significant loss of confidence, which I think a lot of us are hearing, seeing and feeling. A significant loss specifically in the way the UK has been handling the pandemic. Is there anything we can do collectively as an industry to regain that trust and confidence and share that the UK is a safe destination for doing business as well as business travel? Stephen, first of all.
Well, I think Higher Space is doing a brilliant job in terms of getting together protocols and new ways of doing things, and how social distancing and other measures can be put into venues. So perhaps we can gather around Higher Space and have a industry lobbying body that can say, look, we are best in class. We are brilliant in the UK. Here it is, and here is proof and evidence that it's being adhered to. Some kind of kite mark, perhaps. I don't know.
Aurélie, very quickly over to you to answer that same question.
Very, very good point, Stephen. I fully agree. On the top of that, what we encourage to do is to engage more and more with all your people. Check in. Do they feel fine? Because there's a huge mental health aspect to that. So on the top of duty of care and safety, you also have the well-being aspect. So make sure that you keep, you're in touch all the time with them. And in our framework that we provided, we have prepared a set of questions that you might want to ask your travelers as you engage with them. So that, I don't know if you want to display, the very last slide I provided gives you the link, or you just Google Festive Road and you can access the framework for free. But we tried to gather, based on the feedback that we received from people using the framework, questions they ask their travelers and around how confident do they feel.
Final point. We did say no crystal balls, but we're going to bring them out. This time in 12 months' time, and I'd love to end this on a positive note if we can. Look into the future, just 12 months. Stephen, do you see confidence, positivity, more sustainable business travel is it looking good for the future of business travel? Fast forward 12 months, and I'll ask Aurélie the same question.
I'm sure it is. I'm very positive about the future. I think this is a bit of a bump. We're going to be doing things slightly differently, but I'm sure that business travel is going to thrive going forward. I'm sure that events and conferences and meetings are going to be absolutely fine in 12 months' time. Absolutely.
Same. I think, we need to design new experiences. Well, first of all, because we have no choice. This is the world we live in right now. But second of all, I think it's an opportunity as well to try to reinvent ourselves and engage even more with our attendees. What type of experiences do they want to have? And then we need to play with the cards that we've been given and add some creativity on the top of that. And I think this will instill a little bit more confidence in a year.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Aurélie. I know you're very busy people at the moment. We appreciate it from a Higher Space Event Lab point of view. I think those three words, design, reinvent, and engage, are probably the best way to end this session. Thanks to everyone who's contributed and who's watched, who's been viewing. And keep safe, everyone, and we'll see you all soon at a physical on-site event. Take care all. Thank you.